Hello, everyone, and welcome to the About This Life show. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. I'm your host, Woody White, and this is season two, episode one. Now, today we're going to be talking about the employment skills gap. Now, that's the primary focus of the show, but I wanted to start the show by talking about something that is going to start happening and it's going to be very impactful. And I don't think people really understand what they're asking for and what the impact of it is going to be. So I'm going to talk first. No slides for this, but I'm going to be talking first about working from home. See, right now I'm watching a lot of young people and other people who are pretty seasoned working in the workplace, and everybody's demanding to work from home. So I want to talk about that for a brief moment so that everybody really understands the problems with what they're demanding. Okay. So I'm going to start out by saying, let's first talk about the United States and the middle class, right? So if we go back to the 1970s, we had a lot of jobs that were in the US that were tied to things like factories and operations and making products in the United States. And as a result of having those opportunities, we had a vibrant middle class, right? You could have people that left high school, went to work in a sugar factory, or auto factory, many of the factories, and make a good living. And from the 1970s on, for a number of reasons, right? First, it was the factories, creating pollution. Well, did we have to move the factories, or could we have just made our factories better? But that was one of the big reasons why we moved a lot of factories. Then, as you normally have, people saying they want more money, more money, more money. And, at the end of the day, all of these factories got up based on business in the US and they took off. So now these factories are in Singapore, China, everywhere but here. And as a result, our middle class was decimated. So that's a whole bunch of people that no longer were trained for these factory jobs that were basically unemployed. So you have to really think about what happens when you ask for certain things, right? Because at the time it was improve the factories, but you have to remember how business works. Every business, every CEO is going to try to maximize profits, reduce costs, and it's just easier to move the factory. So now let's talk about working from home. So before COVID, people did work from home. People work remotely, but maybe it was one day a week. And some people worked from home all the time, but only certain jobs. What's happening right now is it doesn't matter what job you have. People, especially younger people, are demanding, I want to work from home. So let's talk about that for a second and understand what you're asking for. So before COVID, certain jobs you could work from home. What's happening now is, regardless of the job, people are asking businesses to kind of reconfigure the job so that people can work from home. So let me tell you what the end game of that is going to be. So when you're going into the office, a whole lot of things are happening. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to go in the office and there can't be any remote work, but you have to understand when you go into the office, you're creating a community in the office. People are getting together, and you talk a lot more in the office about little things, big things, things ad hoc, and a lot of that disappears. And that's what companies don't want. They don't want to lose that fluid workplace by allowing everyone to work from home, but now they're being pushed into it. So, as I said to you about the factories, the same thing can happen here. Many of the people that are asking for their jobs to be reconfigured so that they can work from home, just think about that. You're an architect. You used to go in the office before COVID, all your equipment was there, you're connected to the digital technology, and that's where your job was. Now, as an architect, you're demanding that it be at home. You don't want to drive into the office anymore. Well, the very second that happens and they reconfigure the office, now you're working from home, there's less real estate for companies, your job is outsourceable, just like a factory. All of a sudden, your high salary as an architect can be replaced by somebody in another country who understands American architecture and understands, and they've been trained on American laws for strength of materials and all those kinds of things for an architect. your job is now outsourceable. And that goes for everybody that's demanding it. Because if before COVID there was a valid reason for you to be in the office and the company thought everything was more productive, and now you don't want to go back into the office, you're demanding to work from home. Remember, once your job is reconfigured to work from home, your higher salary in this country now gets compared to outsourcing your job to another country. And all of a sudden, we have the same problem we had when the factories moved out. All these people that had jobs that went into the office, all of a sudden, they see their jobs disappearing because remember, companies will find a way to lower costs. And before, they didn't have to figure that out. They just accepted the cost because you went into the office, they paid the real estate costs, they paid your higher benefits costs, and all those things. Just remember, in this country, if we're pushing for $20 an hour for pretty much every job, in other countries, people will be happy to get $2 an hour. So if your job used to be in the office and now you're demanding you work from home, and they configure all these jobs to work from home, your $20 an hour plus is now competing against people in other countries who are willing to work for far less. So remember, and that's without having to pay those benefits that they have to pay in the United States. So think twice about demanding that your job that really kind of should be in an office should be more in a central space that's working with other people. Think twice about that isolation that you're demanding because once your job gets reconfigured to work remotely, it becomes outsourceable at a cheaper price in another country. So, like I said, whether you're an architect, whether you're an engineer and you're designing airplane engines, whether or not you're a programmer, it just even if you're a receptionist and they move that job so that the receptionist module is there and you're managing all the calls from home, you become outsourceable. And you have to think about the job you're in and what it means once they move it to you working from home. Because if you can work from home, that means your job can be done anywhere in the world at a cheaper price. So I'm not saying don't work from home, but people need to really think about kind of going back to the office and things like that to keep these companies from outsourcing and reconfiguring your job because working from home is really kind of a hidden message that really means making your job outsourceable from anywhere in the world. So I just wanted to bring that up. And on top of that, I read an article not long ago that suggested that they're already seeing issues where more people working from home are noticing a slower path to promotions. And I don't know, maybe that's just more of a out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, but promotions seem to be moving a little bit slower for them. In addition to that, I want you to also think about what happened. So remember, we all were in the office, every city. That means there's a lot of commercial real estate buildings all around this country. Right now, commercial real estate is slowly crumbling because companies have all this real estate and nobody wants to come in the office. So they're redesigning jobs for people to work at home. I hate to remind everybody, but wherever you live, how much you pay in taxes, believe it or not, is kind of dependent on the businesses that are in your town paying taxes. So remember, when you get rid of all the businesses that had these offices like accounting firms in the strip malls, and in the big cities, all the businesses that were in these big high rises, and all of a sudden, these buildings are empty, they're collapsing, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it. That's also less taxes being collected for this real estate, those business tenants. And all of a sudden, maybe the money that you was getting for those great schools you had, those trips that you were able to send high school students on, those programs to help people go back to work, that's a lot of taxes being lost because a bunch of people decided to work from home forever. So again, I think everything is best in moderation, and this is no different, the issue of working from home. So I just wanted to get that out so that everybody understands there will be a consequence if everyone demands to work from home and jobs that really should be in the office are reconfigured to make it possible to work remotely. So, what we're going to be talking about today, let's get to the meat of the show. We're going to be talking about the employment skills gap. So, I'm going to get right into this and let's just move forward. So, The talent pool is a part of the employment skills gap, okay? There are more open jobs than talent available. So right now in the United States, there are more open jobs, 9.5 million jobs that are open than unemployed workers. So right now we have 9.6 million jobs open, but we have unemployed workers at 6.5 million. So there's an issue there when they say I don't have enough people applying for these jobs. In some ways, that's a natural statement based on the balance, but in other ways, it also has to do with people being properly trained to apply for the jobs. Okay, now when you take a look at why we have less people that are properly trained, we're causing this problem on ourselves, right? The escalating cost of college have made college unattainable for people. So, you're starting to have generations of people that know upfront, I can't afford college. And I did another show on this. Why is college costing so much? It's not that I don't like sports. It's not that I don't like other things in colleges that are happening. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to be in a college environment and you're spending $100 million on sports stadiums and massive gyms and things like that, that's a lot of money for students to have to come up with to pay for this kind of stuff. When you go to look at some of these college dorms, they literally look like resorts. And I know college students want to be comfortable, but look at what you're paying. We're paying so much that most of the population now can't even afford college anymore. So because of that, our skills as a country, it goes down. Okay, the outdated public school system, I talked about that. Okay. Social media has convinced many young kids to not even want to go to college. They're convinced that they could do a little something, something online and make millions, you know? And all of these things are impacting the skills gap. Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying that some people can't do well in social media with certain things, but you have a lot of people following this vapor, and they're not going to college because they think they're going to be doing things on social media and they're just going to make millions like it's easy to do and there's no effort associated with it. But again, all of these things are impacting our talent pool and it's creating a skills gap. And I'll explain exactly what the skills gap is. Now, what other options do we have and what can we do? So here is a big issue that we have, right? 36.6 million workers hold high churn jobs, meaning low wage jobs that just keep churning, right? And a lot of people who could have gone to college didn't go to college, so they end up in different types of jobs. 10.6 million young workers are new entrants into the workforce and they haven't obtained any type of college degree. Okay, again, can't go to college, can't advance skills. Everybody has to do what they have to do to pay the rent and get by. 12.8 million unemployed college graduates have a job that doesn't draw the skills that they were hired for. So there are a lot of people who are getting college degrees and they're not actually getting into the type of jobs that they went to school for. And again, they end up doing something else, learning other skills, trying to figure out what to do. So at the end of the day, there are tons of statistics about jobs and colleges and problems that we have in this country, and they just need to be remedied. So what can we do? What we can do is we're going to have to figure out some kind of way to take all of these people, especially who are high school graduates and just finding a job anywhere and trying to figure out what to do in advance, right? Because a lot of people will graduate high school, get a job, and there really isn't a lot of advancement. It's one thing to say, I went to go work in a fast food restaurant, but not everybody's going to become a manager. And the turnover rate of those type of jobs are very high. So what kind of skills can we give people? Can we retrain people so that they can actually get those middle class jobs that we lost when we threw away and let all these factories go out of the United States? Some of those factories are coming back, but not at a record pace. So, what are apprenticeship programs for? And the bottom line is, if you want to know what an apprenticeship program is, we've all heard of an internship. An apprenticeship program is more like a paid internship by requirement that teaches you a skill and at the same time offers you a job after learning that skill. Okay, it's sort of an encapsulated program that's really a requirement. It's not a traditional internship. It's an apprenticeship program, and any company can set this up. But there's a uniqueness to an apprenticeship program that actually makes it a little bit difficult for certain jobs. Okay, so in this case, you graduated high school and you didn't go to college. You could join an apprenticeship program, get special skills, make a decent salary, and then move further on to get that college degree. Let's say you graduated college, for example, in psychology, but decided that you wanted to switch careers into AI, digital marketing, computer programming. An apprenticeship program can help you move in that direction without you worrying about money to go to college and all of that sort of stuff. Kids that are old enough and you can go back. So for let me explain it this way. There are a lot of people who have left their jobs to take care of their kids. And you're taking care of your kids, 18 years go by, you got to get back in the workforce. Well, things have changed. Even if you had a job then, the way that job has changed over a period of 18 years makes it difficult to get back into the workplace. That's where apprenticeship programs can help, right? You don't want to be, trying to get back in the workplace after a scenario like that, and somebody's telling you you're going to be an intern and there's no salary associated with it. So that's what good apprenticeship programs are about. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through a few things, but remember, tell people about the show, have them go subscribe, turn on notifications. And again, you can tell them to go to www.aboutthislifeshow.com. You can send me an email at info@aboutthislifeshow.com. So let's continue moving forward. So, what is an apprenticeship program from a skills standpoint? So, the best example I can give you is actually to talk about Jiffy Lube. So, while I'm going to be talking about Jiffy Lube as a company, I want you to think about Jiffy Lube as any company and then the jobs in those companies that can do this. So, when we talk about apprenticeship programs, we're really talking about something that's called disaggregation. Okay, and disaggregation means you have something that used to operate a certain way and you want to break it up to figure out an easier way to do it. So, just to give you my first example, when cars were originally first made, let's say Ford, for example, Ford made everything. They made the tires, they made the parts for the engine, they made the leather seats for the seats that you sit in. They made all the parts and pieces. But then it gets to a point where when you try to do this on volume, they have to bring in other partners and stop making everything. So all of a sudden, Ford was no longer making the seats. They bought the seats from somebody. They no longer made the tires. They bought the tires from someplace else. And Ford became a company that kind of assembled the car. Okay. So let's look at disaggregation that way. So now when we look at Jiffy Lube, think about that. If you were a mechanic and you go back 20 years, the mechanic did everything. The mechanic changed the oil, fixed the brakes, all those things, right? It was all the responsibility of a licensed mechanic. But then companies like Jiffy Lube comes along and they say, you know what? You're right. A mechanic has to do all this stuff. You have to be licensed to work for this auto shop to be able to change the oil. And Jiffy Lube said, actually, we don't think you need to be a mechanic or companies like Jiffy Lube. They said, we'll take the process of changing the oil and turn it into something that we can teach anybody. We'll teach them step by step how to take the oil filter off, go under the car, pull the oil plug, drain the oil, put it back in, change the filter, lube, change the windshield wipers, all that stuff. And all of a sudden now, this one function that used to live within the mechanic shop has now been pulled out, and it's a singular function that an entire company does, and they've built a multi-million-dollar business on. So that's how you have to look at jobs. Okay, you have to look at jobs that way in relationship to apprenticeship programs to help us build more skilled labor force. Okay, so what I decided to do from an apprenticeship program is just take a job that I'm well aware of exists in most companies so you can see how it could happen. So for example, I took the job of something that's known as a human resource generalist. That's somebody that's in a human resource that works in a human resource department that's in every company around around the world, and you break that job up so that you're not exactly the human resource manager, right? You didn't go to college, so you can't become the human resource executive vice president, but you can become the generalist. And what I listed here are things that a generalist does. And you can see the average salary that a generalist could make is 80,000 plus. So if you think about what I'm saying, you're working in a fast food restaurant, you're making $30,000. You're not really learning any other skills other than what they taught you, but you want to advance your life. You want to advance and create a career, but you can't go to college to learn how to be a generalist. So a company, any company can take this position and create an apprenticeship program. They can teach you how to conduct recruitment efforts. They can teach you how to operate the human resource information system. They can teach you how to participate in employee relations investigations. You know, one employee's complaining about another employee. How do you investigate that to determine what's going on? Help maintain HR records. So everything that you see here is what an HR generalist does. So now let's take a look at what a program could be when it's created as an apprenticeship program. So any company could say, we're going to we're going to take certain positions in this company, a number of them, and we're going to create apprenticeship programs. And the whole point of this is to bring people in, teach them a specific skill, make sure they're good at it, and then give them a job. So in the case of this HR generalist, it's a 1 year program. So 10% of that program is going to be online training and testing, right? There's going to be testing. 40% of that is going to be instruction in relationship to on the job training, so to speak. 40% of that is going to be independent projects, independent HR projects to learn how to do things, create an employee manual. You'll be working on things like that. So, and 10% will be exception training. The one thing about apprenticeship training that in certain jobs you need things like exception training is because nobody can tell you everything that's going to happen as an HR generalist, right? Nobody is going to prepare you that two employees got into a fight. You don't expect that to happen, but things happen. So that 10% of exception training is somebody in HR helping this person prepare for those weird and odd and things that happen that nobody could teach you. It's not going to come up in a book. So that exception training is necessary for this type of job. So when those things happen, two employees get into a fight, you know what to do as an HR generalist to manage that for the executive who's managing the department. So if you look down below here in this area where you see the colorful pieces here, it shows the various parts that have to be trained and brought up. So it breaks each component down into 2 months, January, February, March, April. And then it shows that the first part is about workflow. The second 2 months is about policy. The third 2 months is about regulation. The next is learning the systems. The next piece is about events, holding employee events and things like that in relationship to HR. And the bottom piece is learning the recruiting process. So once you go through all of this and you pass the online testing that they give you, you are now an HR generalist. You get your certification. That's how it's designed. And now you're making $80,000. That's what they set up. They know you're trained and they know you're properly trained for the company that trained you. So that's what this is all about. And we have to start doing more of this because the bottom line is we got to get more people moving into skilled jobs if less people are going to be going into college. You know, again, we got to fix the college problem and the cost problem. But until we do, I think apprenticeship programs are the next best thing for us to really dive into and start offering. And remember, these apprenticeship programs can be offered from high school, it can be offered post high school, it could be offered post anything at any time. Okay. So I wanted to go through that. So, from an apprenticeship program standpoint, the current focus right now I see is still mostly on tech jobs. I see a lot of tech jobs that are starting to offer apprenticeship programs, but I do see apprenticeship programs offered in other areas. So, like I said, if you look here on the screen, you'll see companies like Accenture, Amazon, Detroit Labs, Google, IBM. They're starting to offer some of these apprenticeship programs, as well as Verizon, Intuit, Vans, North Face, non-technology companies. They're starting to do the same thing. So, we have to do that. What I also learned is there are a number of townships and counties around the country that are also starting to offer apprenticeship programs to help people get into these county and state jobs, be trained, and again, not as some intern, but to move into these jobs. So, I just kind of wanted to bring that up so that everybody really understands that these apprenticeship programs we have to get into these things because the direction we're headed on right now as a country, where nobody's going to college, everybody's taking less skilled labor jobs and fast food and things like that. We can't keep doing that. We have to become more skilled and we have to find a way to do it. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is from February 5th to February 11th of this year, it's apprenticeship week. So you can go to www.apprenticeship.gov and see what you can learn for yourself about the apprenticeship programs and the whole issue of apprenticeship. Look, some of this stuff, you got to do your homework. If you want this, if you want to change your life, you're going to have to do the work. Okay, somebody like me, I can bring this information to you, but you have to get out there and do the work. I know you know how to use Google and other things, so go do that, do the work, okay? So I have one more slide I wanted to show you. What's interesting about this slide is in the UK, dozens of famous US employers are offering apprenticeship programs that lead to debt-free bachelor programs. So what this means is there are American-based companies, and I'm listing some of them: Goldman Sachs, Deloitte, GE, IBM, JP Morgan Chase, Nestle, UBS. They're offering apprenticeship programs where they have offices in other countries. And those apprenticeship programs are specifically designed to not only give people a job, but take them into the next step of getting their college degree. Now, the catch is that to apply for any of those jobs, you got to be in the United Kingdom. You can't go to UBS here or JP Morgan here and ask for this program. Right now, they're only doing it over there. So hopefully, this type of thing will come to the United States because if you really think about it, if more companies offered the apprenticeship program that led people into a college program to get their degrees, we would be able to do something with the crazy $1 trillion college debt that we have going on right now. So this is something that we need to start doing in the United States and just not doing this in other countries and, you know, leaving Americans without access to this kind of support. So that's it for the program today. I just really wanted to talk about the whole issue of working from home. I want everybody again to really think about what we're doing. If you can go into the office a couple of days a week so that companies keep that real estate, that those taxes keep flowing into the counties and the states, it's going to help. Because if all of these real estate buildings just collapse, everybody's working from home, there's going to be a big negative impact. The impact that I outlined at the beginning of this show. And remember, demanding that your job be turned into work from home means that you're also saying anybody could do your job from anywhere else in the world, especially someplace else in the world where cost is a lot less. So watch out what you ask for because you just might get it and it may change things in a negative way. And that's what I really believe these demands for working from home is going to cause. And from an apprenticeship program standpoint, as I said, look out for the apprenticeship programs. If you're sitting in some dead end job and you want to do something else, do your homework and see if there's an apprenticeship program in a company or a county near you that you can participate in, but you have to do the work. You have to find these opportunities for yourself. So thanks a lot for listening to the show. I look forward to talking to you on the next show, and have a good year.